Hey, this is Joe from Analog Archive, back with another video. The video today is going to be my finds for the month of May. Was able to find some great stuff in Rochester, just like usual, nothing out of the ordinary from the Bob Shop. Found some stuff online, but the big kind of event for the month was being able to go to the Hudson Valley region with my family. I did the same trip last year and was able to go to an amazing record store. I'll talk about the store in just a little bit, but was able to find some incredible records, does not disappoint. So I'll get to that in just a little bit, but was able to find some stuff in Rochester. I found a record in Buffalo along with some stuff online. So we'll get to that first. First one, Peter Brötzmann, Han Benek. This is still quite popular after all these years. This is from 2004. Great partnership between Brötzmann and Benek, dating back to the 70s on the FMP label. So they had a lot of history together, very in tune of each other. Just a great duo, saxophone, really kind of, I guess wood would be like woodwinds, because he plays clarinet along with alto and tenor sax. And then you've got Han Benek on the drums. Just really, really enjoyable album. This was somewhat of a blind buy. I found this in the basement at the Bob Shop, and a really good price. Very happy to have found this. Different sound than what you hear in the 70s. Definitely still free jazz, but it's not as raw as what you heard on the FMP albums by him. So great one if you do see it. So a great one there. Next one, I was very happy to find this one. This one was from a record store in Buffalo. It's called Bob the Record Guy. Had found a few records over the last year from him. He does Saturday posts on Facebook, and I was able to contact him and was able to pick this up. But this is Johnny Diani Quartet Song for Biko. This is on the Steeplechase record label, and this is an original Danish pressing of it. Tougher to find the Danish pressings in the US especially. This one has Don Cherry on cornet, Dudu Pagwana on alto sax, Johnny Diani bass, and Makaya Nishiko. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but cool to see Don Cherry on this. Great free jazz, also mixed with some kind of like post-bop as well. But Dudu Pagwana, especially in alto sax, incredible on this. Very enjoyable sound. Definitely a tougher one to find on the Steeplechase label, so was very happy to have found this. Good price, very good condition, so very happy to have found that this month. The next one was one that I found on Discogs, and I actually just got this in the mail last week. This is John Chakai solo featuring Albert Mangelsdorf on trombone. Most of it just features John Chakai on either soprano / alto sax, and then he has one track that he plays the flute, and there's also a track that has both John Chakai on the saxophone along with Albert Mangelsdorf on the trombone. This is on the FMJ label, FMP label. Great one, and very happy to have found this one. First album that I have by John Chakai. Love to find his sessions that he has as kind of a sideman on the ESP disc label. Haven't been able to find that. His stuff is tough to find really in any form. I think a lot of his stuff was from Europe, which makes it a little more challenging to find as well, but great saxophone player. So very happy to have found this one. Great price as well for that, especially compared to what you see on Discogs going for. Changing it up just a little bit. It's been a while since I've shown something other than jazz, but this is Manuel Goshing. This is Inventions for Electric Guitar. This is an early, I think this is actually from the 70s. I don't know if it says, yeah, it was recorded in 74, probably came out in 75. Tough one to find an original pressing of it, it was German released. The label, I'm not sure if it says on the back what label this was originally on. Yeah, no, I don't think it says on the back what it was, but this is the 2016 pressing on MG Art, which was a label that was started by Manuel Gauching in the early 2000s. He oversaw all of the records that have been released. He unfortunately passed away just a few months ago, but a great guitarist. This one is pretty much just him on the electric guitar. Got an ambient electronic type sound. He was also one of the prominent figures in the Krautrock movement, and a great one as well. So very happy to have found this reissue. Sounds incredible. Can be found for cheap, like 25, 30 bucks. So very happy to have found that one. Next one is Improvisations. This is Globe Unity. There's a few of these releases that fall under this kind of title, Globe Unity. Huge lineup on this. You've got Evan Parker, soprano, tenor sax. You've got Albert Mangelsdorf, trombone. Peter Brotzman, alto sax, tenor sax, bass clarinet. Derek Bailey on the guitar. You got some other figures too, just not as familiar to me. But Dom showed this one, Seeking a Thread, I think just a few weeks ago. And I was able to find this one also at the Bop Shop, beginning of the month. Just free jazz. It's kind of like orchestral free jazz. Kind of, I would say, pretty acquired taste. Very different than even just free jazz. It's really like almost like big band free jazz. So was intrigued by that, and was able to find a copy of this. These are not usually super expensive, these kind of global unities. So found that one this month. And then the last one that I found from outside of the trip that I took just this past weekend. This is a huge find. Shout out to Mike Jazz Bums. He turned me on to this store, one of his local stores in Connecticut called Elm City Sounds, and they had had this record, I think dating back to like last summer, and I contacted the owner, Chris, super nice guy, didn't know me. I just called him on the phone, and he was willing to let me purchase it and shipped it to me. So very happy to have found that. This was originally sealed. This is an early 70s, like from like 73 pressing of it. It's on the orange ESP disc label. This is just one of the iconic releases from the ESP disc catalog. This is actually the first jazz record that was released on the ESP disc label. This is Albert Ayler Trio, Spiritual Unity. I couldn't pass up not only finding a copy. I've been looking for this one for a while, ever since I really have gotten into Albert Ayler, but especially to find a sealed copy. I was going to be the first one to kind of pop the plastic and put it on, even though it had been sealed for 50 years, not warped, which was a really great sign. Played really well, so very happy to have found this one. And actually on the trip that I took to the Hudson Valley this past weekend, I was able to find a second copy, so of course can't find it for months, and then 2 copies show up in a few weeks. So it's always the way it works. So found this one, incredible, great one, very happy to have found that. Can't really overstate that. It's just unbelievable Albert Ayler session. So the rest of the records are going to be from my trip to the Hudson Valley. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I took a trip with my family last year to the Hudson Valley. That's the area between Albany and New York City, in kind of the eastern side of New York State. Very picturesque, beautiful kind of Hudson River runs right through it. That's why it's called the Hudson Valley. And one of the kind of big aspects of the Hudson Valley, at least for me, was being able to go to the record store Hudson Valley Vinyl in Beacon. It's about 50 miles north of New York City, and I went there last year for the first time. I had talked to a few people about the store, kind of had an idea of what to expect, but was absolutely blown away. My expectations were blown out of the water, and this year was even better. I'm going to include kind of some photos, me in front of the store. But the store was just packed with amazing jazz, especially. Was able to find a lot of great stuff in the bins, so we'll get into that. First one is Sonny Rollins Volume 2. This is a Black Bee from 1973, so this was originally came out in like probably 1558. More than likely, that was probably 57, late 57, maybe early 58, but kind of in that 57, 58 time period. Been looking for this one for a while. I had a chance to buy a copy from the Bop Shop in the fall, but it ended up just being just trashed, and which was really disappointing. And ever since, this has been on my radar, trying to find as best of a pressing as I could. Couldn't pass up this one. This one was $25, which for these Black Bees is just a steal at this point. Before COVID, $25 was probably somewhat in line. You could probably be paying $30, maybe $40, depending on the title for those Black Bees. But now you're seeing these Black Bees for 50, 60 plus, depending on the title. So you got J.J. Johnson, trombone, Sonny Rollins tenor sax, Horace Silver, and Thelonious Monk piano, Paul Chambers bass, Art Blakey drums. Just unbelievable lineup. Very happy to have found this one again. Price was just too good to pass up, and decided to finally own it. I'd love to find a mono copy of it. Maybe that'll come sometime this year, but if not, I've got a great pressing to hold me over. Next one is one that I actually have, I've shown volume 1 of this, and in my April finds, or not April finds, sorry, my March finds, I found the Record Store Day release of this from last year, but this is the original. This is Albert Ayler Volume 2. This is on the French label Chandar. So again, there's a Volume 1 and a Volume 2. They had both Volume 1 and Volume 2 at the store. I already had Volume 1. I was kind of thinking whether or not I should have bought that or not, but I didn't have an original of Volume 2, and the rationale for this, even though, again, I already have the Record Store Day release from last year that features this album in kind of its completion beyond what just you hear on the Volume 1 and Volume 2, was the fact that I'm probably more likely to play this being a single LP versus the 5 LPs that was. So decided to grab this, really great condition. That was the other thing too with Hudson Valley Vinyl, was you're finding these records. This is not a super easy record to find in a store. It's not expensive. I mean, it's going to be maybe $20, $30, well, maybe $30, $40 for it, but are you going to find it? And I mean, I've never come across any of these records, really any of the ones that I'm going to show. I've never come across these in a store. So to find these, great condition, great price for these as well. Very happy to have found this one. Continuing to add to the Albert Ayler collection. The next, the next one, I was going to say the next few, but there's one in between that. But this is Jimmy Lyons featuring Karen Borka. This is Riffs, is the name of it. This is on the Hat Musics label, which was like a subsidiary of, I think it's called Hat Hut Records, a great free jazz label in like the later 70s. This is from the early 80s. It's from 82. Wanted to find some records with Jimmy Lyons. I have the Cecil Taylor recordings that are actually from the same music venue as the Albert Ayler that I just showed. But wanted to find some Jimmy Lyons solo stuff. This is the only one that I found, but was very happy to even have found this. Was not familiar with this record at all. Not only was it cool to find a Jimmy Lyons record, but the fact that Karen Borka plays the bassoon, which I think is just awesome. I don't have any other records that have a bassoon on it. It's a very cool woodwind instrument, so very happy to have found that. That was just a cool one. Again, no idea what that was beforehand, but was cool to find that. This next one I was very excited to find in the bins. This is Billy Harper, Soren Bushi BH. This was a Japanese release from the late 70s. I think this is from 78. This came out, recorded in December 77 in New York City, Sound Ideas Studios. You've got Billy Harper tenor sax, Everett Hollins trumpet, Harold Mayburn piano, Greg Maker bass. I don't know if it's Horace. There's two E's in Horace. Maybe it's Horace. Arnold drums and Billy Hart drums. So great lineup. Love Billy Harper. His stuff is really hard to find. He's kind of the same thing as John Chikai. A lot of his recordings were in Europe, which in the U.S. means tougher to find. Especially for cheap. This was a great price. This was $40, which I thought was pretty fair, considering I've never seen any Billy Harper other than the one that I got from Angry Mom last year. So very happy to have found that one. Love Billy Harper. His tone, his approach to the saxophone is unbelievable. So very happy to have found that. The next two, some blind buys. Familiar with the artists, not familiar with the records. This one is Tricks of the Trade. Frank Lowe. Frank Lowe, great free jazz player. I've got his one album on ESP disc. Unbelievable session. That's a pretty wild session. Not easy to approach. This is from the late 70s. This one's from 77. Not familiar with the label it's on. This is a French label. I'm also not familiar with the players, but he's on the tenor sax. Lawrence Butch Morris cornet. Didier Lavallee is on the bass, and George Brown is on the drums. Free jazz, just blind buy. Love Frank Lowe, so was worth taking the risk for that. So that was that one. And then this next one was a blind buy, but I was familiar with it once I saw it because Dave had actually shown this record. Dave, the VC ambassador, had told me about the record a few months ago. This is Local Color, Peter Lemmer Quintet. This is also on ESP disc, so continue to add more ESP disc albums. This one, a little bit later of a session on ESP disc, is from 68. Just free jazz as well. We've got Peter Lemmer on the piano, Nisar Ahmad Khan on tenor sax, John Sermon, baritone sax, bass clarinet, soprano sax, Tony Reeves bass, and John Heisman on the drums. So another ESP disc. Great condition, especially for considering that it is ESP disc, and a lot of them can be kind of trashed. So very happy to have found that as well. And then finally, found some more Archie Shepp. This is a twofer, if you want to call it that. This is on BYG Actuel. This is a Japanese pressing. I've never seen a Japanese pressing of these BYG Actuels, but sounds really great. And great price. Features two of his albums. So you've got Yasmina, a Black Woman, and then you've also got his album Live at the Pan-African Festival. So those were two BYG Actuels that came out in I think they were between 69 and 71. This was released in 71, so it might have been 69, 70. Those two albums came out, but a great bang for your buck being able to get two, especially for $40. You're definitely not going to find those two for $20 a piece. So to find the two for getting both albums, continue to add more Archie Shepp. So was happy to have found that as well. Again, as I said, just unbelievable store, Hudson Valley Vinyl. Not a huge place, very well curated stuff. Would have loved to find something on the wall, some big like Blue Note or Prestige or some kind of free jazz, but just wasn't in the cards this time. But made up for it with the bins. Never seen jazz bins like this. Everything was just great condition. I thought the prices were pretty fair, and it was just blown away by the titles that you had. I mean, there was a great, pretty large section of John Coltrane, Miles Davis. You're finding albums that you just don't see. I mean, I found there was a few John Coltrane albums, his kind of those prestige sessions that were pulled from like the late 50s that weren't released until like 62 to 65. There's quite a few of those albums that were there, and I didn't end up picking any of them up, but the fact that they were there, I've never seen any of those in person before, so just can't overstate how amazing this store was. If you're ever in New York City and you want to take the drive up, again, it's like 50 miles, so it's probably about an hour from New York City. It's well worth the drive. It's one of the best record stores I've probably ever been to, and especially when it comes to jazz, it's just unbelievable. So it's a great trip, second time going, and I hope to be able to go back soon. But that is it for this video. Please think about liking and subscribing if you have not already, and I will see you in the next vinyl video. Bye.